Greetings, meeples, and welcome to the first episode of Bored with Video Games. That's right. Donnie over at PSVG wanted to expand his sphere of influence. He wanted to grow the PSVG family and brand. So we come to you with a new, tentatively weekly podcast dedicated to playing games on the table and on the TV, but not on the computer monitor because we ain't nerds. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle, and joining me each week on this co-op adventure, the guy who lives his life dedicated to one and only one hashtag, and that is hashtag butts. Josh, how you doing, man?
Doing great. I'm doing great. It's been a long day, but I'm ready to go.
Isn't this exciting? We have talked about having a more board game focused podcast for, like almost a year now, it seems like.
We've been talking about it for almost a year. It's insane. I'm thrilled. It's become so much more my life now with a kid that it's just something that I've been dying to talk about and to experience and share. So I'm psyched. I can't. The two of us are clearly the most passionate board gamers of PSVG. So I can't imagine doing it with anyone better. So glad to be on board with you.
Yeah, this is gonna be great. And when I've said before on the show that when I thought I would get into podcasting, I always thought it would be on the board game side, never on the video game side. So this is really exciting. But if you are a video game listener and you know PSVG because of our focus on video games, never fear. We have a little bit for you on this show as well. So we don't want you to run away. We want you to stick around. We'll talk a little bit about video games. We'll talk a little bit about board games. But since this is episode 1, it's probably important for us to share kind of the vision, where we think this podcast is going to go and kind of what we want it to become, because we want to build it with you all, but we have a general outline of what we're thinking. So Josh, why don't you kind of take them through what we're hoping this beast becomes?
Okay, I would be honored. This is basically PSVG splitting up into like episodic podcasts. So we want to keep it under 60 minutes to make sure it's digestible easily, especially if we're pumping out more shows. It is called Bored with Video Games, so we're going to try to dedicate equal portions, half board games, half video games. It's possible we might talk more about board games just because that's really what the focus is, but we're still gaming, so we like to let you guys know what we're playing, and we want to hear what you guys are playing as well. So we'll do a topic each. So a video game topic, a board game topic. Depending on what it is, what social events are going on, like the Nintendo World Championship that just happened, or whether it be Essen coming up, or PAX Unplugged, or whatever. We'll talk about topics like that. We'll go over your questions if you guys submit them, and if they're so good and incredible, maybe we'll take that question and turn it into a whole theme of an episode. Who knows? Maybe more on that later. We'll typically start with some video game stuff, since we're getting a lot of our listeners from PSVG, so we'll kind of ease you into the board game stuff, tease you a little bit with our video game info and slowly lull you into the corner while we talk video games into your ear and put you to sleep. We're going to try to avoid duplicate topics. There's a lot of other podcasts coming out, so ultimately, as we get closer to big events, you may or may not see similar things discussed or even the same exact topic, but you're going to get Kyle and my unique input on that, so it won't necessarily be totally the same.
So I know there are many, many rabid fans of Kyle and Josh out there, just beating down the doors, just can't get enough of the stuff that we produce and put out there. We will both still occasionally be on the flagship PSVG podcast, but probably not as often, maybe once a month, once every 6 weeks. We will be much more often. This show, like I said, hopefully will be weekly. There might be some times, especially around the holidays and things like that, because this is really just Josh and I doing most of the work for this, that we might take a week here off here or there. We'll always let you know ahead of time. Hopefully we will never randomly just not post. We want to make sure that as someone myself who listens to a ton of podcasts, I kind of like to know what my schedule is going to be and all that good stuff. So we'll try to keep it pretty regular for you, and let you know if for whatever reason we're not going to be around a certain week. But Josh and I are really excited to do this. We've really wanted to bring more board games to PSVG, but we also want your assistance to make this show great. If you have any feedback, questions, suggested topics, feel free to hit us up at Board with VG. That's board, B-O-A-R-D, like a board game. Board with VG on Twitter. So we'll be posting a lot of stuff there as the games that we're playing, having conversations with you all there. We'll be also on Instagram, also Board with VG. So hit us up there. Let us know what questions you have, topics you want us to talk about, video game or board game related. We'll also be tagging all of our stuff with the hashtag Board with VG. So we're hoping that we can kind of create a nice little community here, those who are really passionate about video games, those who are really passionate about board games, and just kind of all work together to have a great time. And like I said, remember, that's Board, B-O-A-R-D. I thought this was really clever when I came up with it, but I'm soon leaning that this might become a really big nightmare.
People are going to be confused, or they're going to think we're coming down on video games. I think it's great. I think it's smart. It's good. It's a good one.
Awesome.
Don't listen to him.
That is kind of the vision of what the show is going to be. But like I said, we want your feedback. We will be flexible. And like Josh had mentioned, if there are big events like Essen or PAX Unplugged or anything like that on the board game side, we'll definitely be talking about that. And if there's bigger things on the video game side, there's Paris Games Week and PSX and things like that in the future, we'll probably touch on those a little bit too. So cover everything to a degree, but we'll kind of, wax and wane depending on where the biggest news is and where the biggest things going on are. So with that, how about we just jump into what this show is going to be? Let's start talking about some video games. Josh, what have you been playing? What's one game you'd love for everyone to hear you talk about when it comes to video games?
Well, that's tricky because everyone just heard me talk for 2 hours about Destiny.
Is that the only game you've been playing?
Pretty much, to be totally honest with you. I mean, I won't lie. I bought Stardew Valley for the wife on the Switch. I haven't delved in. I've been playing Golf Story sparsely. I probably played Golf Story 30 minutes within the past week. So I'm not going to talk about it.
You're about as far into Golf Story as I am. Nice work. Nice work.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's Destiny 2, man. And it's like riding a bike. I feel like I'm right back in Destiny 1. I put so much time into that game. It's still incredible. I love it still. Iron Banner started today. I'm not a big multiplayer guy per se, but I jumped right in today and started earning some tokens, and I actually had some really good matches, which is not typical for me in Crucible. But when I played so Kyle and I played the other night with some guys from our clan, and I did pretty well, better than I usually do. So I'm gonna say you guys are like my muses, because typically I'm bashing my head against the wall, coming in last place every game. But I don't know. I love it. Join our clan. Apparently, we had a bunch of people drop out, which is not cool. That's a shot at Coach Mo if he's listening, which he probably isn't.
Because we're going to be talking about board games, so probably not jumping in.
I can't believe he left our clan. PSVG Guardians. It's only one G in there though, so PSV Guardians on PlayStation. Actually, either console.
Yeah.
So you guys should join us if you are playing Destiny and listening. I have Cuphead. I put some time into Cuphead, but I don't want to bore you with more Destiny. You've listened to enough Destiny. You played enough Destiny. People, I'm sure, are getting sick of hearing about Destiny. But it's so good. And I mean, they're just unrolling a whole new event now, and it's only been, is it 3 weeks now that it's been out?
No, but we're about a month now, because we're early September and now it's October. So
yeah, okay. Yeah. So new event. I mean, it's strictly multiplayer focused. So I know that turns some people off, but I'm still having plenty of fun with the story mode as well. Post campaign finished, but yeah, I enjoy it. I think that you have a more interesting game to talk about, so I'm just gonna let you talk about your game.
Well, before we transition, really quick, I have a confession to make.
Uh-oh.
I listened to your guys' podcast about Destiny 2, and I was hoping to be there, but I couldn't because I had other obligations the night you guys recorded. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not over Destiny 2, but I feel much less compelled to jump in every day like I used to.
Really?
Yeah, I'm like, my power level is 297, and I like, obviously, Tuesdays the reset happens, and I definitely want to jump in to do those events to get the powerful gear, to run those few Crucible games, to do the Nightfall Strikes again and get that powerful gear. Outside of that, I don't feel very compelled to play. Like, if we can get a full fire team playing Crucible, like playing with you and stuff was a great time. When you can run with a group, things go better there. But I'm kind of, since we rarely or have never gotten a group together to do the raid, I could start another character, I guess, but I'm like, there's so much other stuff to play, and Overwatch just started their Halloween event. I'm struggling with the desire to jump back into Destiny 2 unless I know other people are going to be playing.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, that happened with me with Destiny 1. I think it's a good thing, though, to an extent. I mean, you take some time off from an all-consuming game like Destiny, and like once you hit where we are, because I hit 295 today, so I'm pretty much pushing the press your luck on Engram's game, hoping I pop a higher level one. But yeah, I agree with you. Like in like a couple of weeks, I'm gonna take some time off from Destiny, probably until the next expansion comes out, or the first expansion. But that's a good thing. I think that's one of the draws of Destiny is you can get right back into it. Mm-hmm. Although something that happened to me in Destiny 1 was I didn't jump on each expansion as they came out, and then I felt way too far behind trying to get back in like 2 expansions back.
Right.
So it's going to be important to me to keep up with DLC as it comes out, but I totally get it. I hear you. I thought you were going to talk about how it sounded like Nathan hated Destiny from that podcast.
Well, it sounded like he was definitely more down on it than the rest of you were, but I don't think it sounded like he hated it.
Yeah,
so.
He was begging to get on that, and then he comes on and he's like, I don't like this.
Well, it's good to have a dissenting opinion. It's always good to hear the other side.
I agree.
So the game I want to talk about, though, is actually a game that I have been really looking forward to since it was first revealed at PSX 2015, I believe. Maybe it was 2016. I don't remember. Either way, no, it's 2015. And that is Hob, the newest entry from the folks over at Runic Games. They previously created Torchlight and Torchlight 2. Those are some Diablo-style games that are on PC. So I've never played those, but when I saw Hob first revealed, this was a game that I was like, that game is stunning looking. I really want to get some of this into my life. And the easiest way to describe Hob is it is basically like an old school Zelda game. It is an open world that you are exploring and adventuring, fighting some creatures, getting some stuff, but slowly through the puzzles that you solve and the things that you do, you unlock additional parts of the world for you to explore. And the art direction in this game and how the game builds this world and puts it together is spectacular. You are solving these puzzles, which none of them are super complicated or overly hard, but you're solving these puzzles, and then the whole earth and world around you shifts. Sometimes things come like flying up from far below you, or things high above you will come crashing down into new formations. So you're almost like you're terraforming this planet or this area of this world to become hospitable again. There's a plague of some sort that has overtaken it, and you are trying to rid, from what I can tell, the world of this plague. Now, I say from what I can tell is because there's no words in this game. It is a completely wordless narrative. So you are I think I understood what I was doing and why I was doing it, but I'm not totally certain. So,
Yeah.
wordless narratives are kind of weird that way, and I think I know why I did what I did. There's multiple endings to the game. I went through and played it a couple, and got them both. I don't know if I was supposed to be able to get them both the way I did. I don't know if it was a bug or not, because I literally ended the game. Then my screen, when it was supposed to go back to hey, do you want to continue? It just went black and the game never reloaded. So I quit out, came back in, and I reloaded right where I had been. So then I went back into the final area and then made the other choice for the ending. I got the other ending. So I don't know if it was supposed to work that way. That is one thing I will say about this game, is that I ran into a number of bugs while playing it. I completely crashed out to the PlayStation Home menu 3 times. And there was definitely some slowdown when you're playing it if you're running really fast and there's a lot of enemies on screen. And there was sometimes some weird animations where you get caught in the environment and you would slowly wiggle your way out. Your character would slowly wiggle their way out. So they're definitely, it's not as polished as the Zelda game is going to be, but that studio is so small, and what they were able to create in a couple of years with the small number of people they have is really something special. It is a really easy game to recommend if you enjoy the Zelda style game of exploration. The gameplay is pretty solid and is pretty responsive. There's a couple weird times where you're doing some jumping and some platforming that's not quite as tight as I'd want it to be, but overall it's really good. The sound design is really minimalistic but great. But I'm telling you, that art direction in that game is just beautiful. I took so many screenshots and so many things, and that is now my background on my PS4. It is a beautiful, beautiful game, and I hope people give it a shot. It's really inexpensive. It's $20. It's probably 8 to 10 hours to finish, but there's a ton of secrets for you to go back and check out. So I really recommend Hob. I do have a full review written for the website, but I haven't uploaded it yet because I can't find a jump drive to get my pictures off my PS4. So I got to finish that so I can actually finish the review, but it is written and I definitely recommend it. So if you have the opportunity or you're interested in that style game, Hob has gotten really buried by Cuphead, which sounds fantastic, and Golf Story, because it came out that same week that those two games did. But I really, if you're on PS4 or PC, highly recommend Hob. It is a excellent, excellent game. So
nice. Yeah, I saw one of your screenshots. It looked really good.
Yeah, it's a beautiful game. It's just stunning. So for our video game topic for the week, as we turn the corner into the last quarter of the year, we hit an 8-week or so avalanche of big games. And, I don't know about Josh. Maybe he's Daddy Warbucks. I don't know. But I don't have all the time or all of the funds to purchase and play all of these games. So we just wanted to have I just want to have a brief conversation, Josh, about what are you planning to purchase this fall? Kind of what are you looking at playing? Why are those the games that you're looking at playing? And how do you decide when you have all these games to play, what you want to jump into?
It's a tricky situation. This happens every holiday season, I feel. There's always way too many games I want to play and want to pick up. Only wait ideal for a jump or Destiny 2 has been pretty good at helping me with my budget, since I don't have to worry about playing too many games right now. But October 27th, I want to say, is Assassin's Creed Origins. I'm looking at this list here.
Yeah.
So that'll be my first buy. I'll probably get Mario Odyssey as well on the same day, but I probably won't play it right away. There's a lot of games that I want to play, and then there's Bubsy.
Poor Bubsy. Who asked for this? Who asked for Bubsy?
Nobody did. Nobody asked for that. So that's my plan, at least. I want to get Battle Chasers on the Switch. I know it came out on PS4, but I've read the comic. I have the comics. I was always a fan of that, so that looks good. I know that's a little bit later for Switch, so I can wait on that. I think it's October 20th or something like that. But yeah, my current plan is Assassin's Creed Origins, Mario Odyssey, and then wait a month till Black Friday. Because I'm going to PAX Unplugged. I mean, I'm going to have so many board games. I'm looking at a stack in front of me of 15 board games that we got in the past month that we haven't played yet. Like, I have so much to do. I just picked up the Mansions of Madness first edition for $30 at Barnes & Noble.
But it's first edition.
80% off.
I know.
$30.
It's so all that setup, man. All that setup.
I know. I had to have it. Though. I had to have it. So for the video game side, Middle Earth, the Shadow of Mordor game is intriguing to me, but I never finished the first one. I did buy it just recently when it was on sale on Xbox for like $5 for the Game of the Year edition. So I'll play through that. I got so much backlog too. Like I got Metal Gear Solid to play now because it's the free game of the month for PlayStation Plus. So I can't wait to jump into that. So that might be. I'll probably stop Destiny 2 within the week and jump on Metal Gear and try to get that knocked out before the 27th. So that's my plan. I'm gonna get Mario, Assassin's Creed, wait for Black Friday. What about you?
I have serious acquisition disorder, and I think this comes from the board game realm that I feel like I have to buy everything. And my backlog is not, I can't even call it a backlog anymore because there's no way I'm going to play everything on there. Like I own a ton of games I'm never going to play. So I'm trying.
Just a library now.
It is. It's very much just a library. And I've been trying to be much more conscientious of and be a little more frugal about how I'm spending money because board games are getting way expensive. Have you seen the Seventh Continent Kickstarter?
Yes, I did see that.
I'm like it's like $130 because I don't have the current one. I'm like, oh my Lord. I'm probably gonna get it. Don't tell my wife, but I shouldn't say that. I will have the conversation with her and be an adult about it. But I'm like, oh man, like what am I gonna have to give up to get that? Anyway, for video games. So here's the thing. I really want to play Shadow of War, which obviously just came out. I have not picked it up yet, and I think I'm going to wait on that one. I loved Shadow of Mordor. It was my game of the year in 2014. I just loved that game. But I think that whether I play this game today or I play this game in 3 months or 6 months for $20, I'm going to have the same amount of fun. This isn't a game I need to play today. It's a game I don't care about the story. I care about running around and killing some orcs, and I can do that today or I can do that in 6 months. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to wait for a deal on that one, which honestly is not something I typically do. I contemplated, I really have wanted to get back into an RPG lately. I've been hankering for that. So I thought about South Park, but I actually recently picked up Ys 8, and I've been playing that. And that game is spectacular and very sad that nobody's talking about that game. So that will be one of the games I talk about one of these weeks on this once I finally finish it. So I think for me, the big games I'm going to get, I think this fall are Assassin's Creed Origins. And the reason is stupid. And it's because there's hippos. And it's all about the hippos. And there is a trophy for successfully running away from hippos 3 times. So how could I not get the game? There's a trophy for hippo interaction. Like I have to get this game. So that's one. I will probably buy Super Mario Odyssey eventually. Not day one because, again, Mario games, I'm not worried about the story. So whenever I have maybe a lull or I have that hankering for a platformer, I will pick that up. But it's not going to be a day.
Not worried if Bowser marries Peach?
Not worried. Not worried at all. Not one bit.
You might get spoiled.
I know, right? It might get spoiled. I do want to play Call of Duty this year, but since I have basically completely checked out of the Call of Duty multiplayer, I'm going to again wait on that one for a deal. So it's because all I'll play is the campaign. So the only other games that are really, other than some VR games, which I'm still waffling on, the other 2 games that I'm pretty certain I will probably pick up, one being Okami HD, because believe it or not, I have never played Okami. I feel like I should have played Okami because it seems like a game that would be up my alley, but I've just never played it. So I've not played Okami at all, so I will probably pick that when it comes up in December, and that'll be, I think, a good winter break game. And then the other one I'm probably going to get is Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on Switch.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm like the only person I have talked to who that Nintendo Direct sold me more on that game than I was previously. I feel like I'm the only person.
It sold me out of that game.
Right, exactly. I feel like I'm the only person who's like, this game looks amazing. Yeah. I'm totally getting this game now. And everyone else, I was like, is this a direct just for this game? Why this really was the dragging point? It slowed it down. And like, I get it, but I also think that game is so complicated. Like, how else do you market what is going on there other than kind of give you a tutorial? Maybe which isn't the best. Maybe they should have saved it for a specific direct for the game. But I'm way excited about it now. I think that is an RPG that I'm really looking at picking up. And again, I think, when it comes to traveling for the holidays, will be a great thing for me to bring with and just kind of have all of that stuff. So those are what I'm looking for. How do you decide what you're going to play?
I don't. I literally put my foot in everything and see how it feels. It drives me crazy. I really wish I had a better system because I don't. I got Everybody's Golf like a while ago when it came out, knowing that like 2 days later I was getting Destiny 2. Like, why did I do that?
Right.
I haven't finished Mario and Rabbids, and I was dead set on finishing that. But then Destiny 2 came out. So, and then I'm buying games while I'm playing Destiny 2. It's the fear of missing out thing that I've suffered from my whole life, and finally someone put a name on it. Like, I didn't realize what it was, but I just put 300 games on my SNES Classic. What am I going to do with that?
With like the games on there are like 30 hours a piece anyway, the 21 games you get other than Star Fox 2.
So today I played like 2 minutes of each game for like, what am I doing? Why? So I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you unless there's a game that I specifically know I need to finish story-wise, like right away. That's the only definitive answer I have onto what to play. It's like how I have to see stars out, because people make a living on the internet ruining things for good people like you and I.
It's true. That's true.
I need to, and that's how I decide what I play first, I guess.
Gotcha.
It's not the right reason. It's not a great reason. But plus we're on a podcast that we need about things that are current.
Right.
And I need to be on top of that.
Yeah, that is hard. I think there definitely feels to be that pressure of like, you have to keep up with everything that's coming out when there's no way you can. One game though that did a good job of showing more of itself than maybe it should have was Battlefront 2, because I'm not buying that anymore. So
that sold me. Yeah, that beta sold me out of the game.
Yeah, I know that Nathan probably is very depressed to hear that, because I know he's super high on the beta. I played it and I was like, yep, this looks pretty. This sounds pretty. I don't need to pick this up. So we'll see.
Yep.
Awesome. Hey, man, we've talked enough about video games. Should we talk a little bit about those other types of games we enjoy playing?
Those analog games?
Those analog games, yeah. Awesome. What board games have you been playing?
So I want to talk about Sagrada, but I just want to throw it real quick. The wife and I, she had the past few days off for our anniversary, so we sat down with feeding the baby at the kitchen table, and we played King Domino for the first time, and I'm already forgetting the other game we played. Santorini for the first time.
Oh, okay.
And we love both of them. Great 2-player games. But Sagrada is a game that she's been kind of asking me to get for a while, and when she's interested in a game, I immediately indulge that, because that's awesome. Getting, when we got together, she wasn't into board games. It was party games, if that, so the fact that our interests have aligned over time, I need to like foster her interest in board games. So it's a little bit before we started about how you guys go, but I pulled some info on it. So Sagrada is, I'll give you the boring details and then I'll tell you my experience with it. It's designed by Adrienne Adam Skew and Daryl Andrews. It's good. Family is but I'll tell you what it is. Basically, it's a dice drafting game. So if anyone's ever played like it's very similar to that, except what you're doing is you're building stained glass, so to speak. Each person, each person, and on the bottom of it is a blank, squared out area. I want to say it's 5 by 6. And what you have is a sheet, and each sheet you get has a difficulty level on it, and it's double-sided. And what you do is you get 2 randomly at the start of the game, and you pick which one you want to play. On the bottom, it shows you the difficulty. So whatever difficulty level you decide, you're going to get these gems equal to that number. So like the last game we played, I picked a difficulty of 6. So you get 6 gems. They go on next to your board or on your board. And each sheet slides into your stained glass, we'll call it a token, but it's bigger than that, player board, which looks gorgeous. And they're all different colors, and they have some different designs on them. And that sheet that you put in is going to be colors and numbers, and those are your requirements on how to build your window. So one of the squares might be just a red square, which means you can only put a red die in it. And next to that might be a 2, which means you can only put a 2 that is rolled. But if you can't put 2 colors next to each other or 2 numbers next to each other that match. So you can't have a red and a red or a 2 and a 2. You can do diagonal, but not horizontal or vertical. And you have to start on one specific part of the board. It has to be on a corner. And then you have to build off of that. You can't just place anywhere on your board. And what you do is you take, depending on the number of players, you take a set amount of dice, you put them into a bag, not out the correct number of dice, and the player who draws rolls them, and that's your die pool to draw from on that turn. So then you only, depending on if it's a 2-player game, I believe it's 5 dice that you roll. You only have 5 dice to pick from, and they're multiple colors and different numbers, so you have to plan out. It's like a game of chess almost. Plan out your board and try and hope your opponent doesn't take that number or color you need. There's also white squares on it that you can put anything on. But if you're like me, think wrong color and white, and then you go a block of moves. It's a fairly simple game to get, but the actual strategy is the complicated part. But the instruction booklet does have one of my most dreaded and most favorite things in it. It explicitly says, if at any point you or your partner is playing the game and someone notices that your card has an illegal move on it, one of the die that is illegal is removed and is not put back.
Wow.
And if you don't fill all of your squares on the board, you get -1 victory point for every blank square. So if you're playing through the game and you realized you have 4 illegal moves at any point, you don't get to replace them. You don't get to re-roll. You just remove those dice from the game and continue playing.
It's kind of like in Galaxy Trucker when you have your ship inspected by the person next to you, and you can lose an entire part of your ship that you didn't build correctly.
I'm in Galaxy Truckers on my wish list of games to play. The playing time is suggested 20 to 40 minutes. I find that to be pretty accurate. The first game, as you know, it's going to take longer, especially figuring out. But I would say it wasn't too difficult to figure out the rules. In fact, it was pretty simple. I think we knocked the rules out maybe 5 minutes, which I think is almost unheard of here in the Borboni household.
Yeah.
In the first game, I made a mistake, and my wife didn't, and that was it. One mistake. I had to remove one die. It was pretty great. The publishers, Floodgate Games, to my knowledge, it's the first game of theirs that I have played. I can't more highly recommend this game. It was sold out for a while. We had to get the second printing. So it's definitely been popular. It's got a 7.6 from Board Game Geek. I know the user rating is I think it's lower at a 6.3, which if I had read the reviews, I typically won't buy a game on a whim that's under a 7. But I think this game deserves way higher than that 6.3. So if I were to personally rate it, I would give it a 7.5 to an 8. I really enjoy it that much. I recommend it to anyone that just kind of has the time to maybe sit down and play even a 2-player game. We had some friends come over the other day. We played a 4-player game. It took considerably longer than 40 minutes because you're playing that. Each game is 10 turns.
Okay.
So with 2 players, 10 turns goes pretty quickly. But with 4 players, that definitely is extended.
Right.
So I would say we probably play half on that game. But we had what do they call it? Analysis paralysis. Was worried about he was planning invested in the game, so he didn't want to make the wrong move. So there was a few times where I got up for a bathroom break, and he's still, figuring out what he was going to do.
We've all been there. We've all probably also been that person once or twice. So
yeah, it happens for sure. But yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it, and I'll be honest with you, as excited as I am about Sagrada, I'm more excited to hear about the game that you were playing because I have wanted to play it since I heard about it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I actually have almost picked up Sagrada a number of times because the box art is just so beautiful. But rather than pick up Sagrada, this game that I got, see, for people who play a lot of video games but don't play a lot of board games, this is one of the things I wish could happen more in video games is that when I tell you the premise of what this game is, you're going to be like, what are you talking about? But the board games can do this stuff and it's still fun. So imagine, Josh, that you are a rancher in Texas and you need to move your cattle to Kansas City to then ship them via railroad all across the Western United States. That doesn't sound fun? That sounds so fun, doesn't it?
In Texas.
So
tell me that Ticket to Ride building routes was going to be fun. I would also tell you you're crazy.
I know, right? Right. It's just like trading in the Mediterranean. But anyway, the game I'm talking about is Great Western Trail. This game was originally published by, I believe, Eggert Spiel in Germany. But in the US, I think it's published by Stronghold. One thing that's super weird about board games is they have 13 publishers, depending on what part of the world they're published in. So I think Eggert Spiel was the original publisher, and I know Stronghold, through their partnership, publishes it here. It's designed by Alex Pfister. It's a 2 to 4 player strategy game or Euro game, if you're into those terms. So some important things. Number one, the theme. I'm a big my wife loves Euro games. I'm much more of an Ameritrash player, or Amerithrash, depending on what group of podcasts you listen to regarding board games. I really enjoy that style of game more, but my wife really likes Euro, so I try to play this style of game with her whenever I can. And conceptually, Great Western Trail is very much a Euro game, but it's a very simple, like many Euro games on the surface, it's super simple. You literally, when the game starts, you take your little cowboy, You have 7 places on the map that are currently filled in with locations. You literally move to a location, do the action on the card. That's it. That is all the game is you move to a location, do the action on that location. So obviously the complexity comes in when it comes to what location do I move to? Am I able to do, the action that is on there, the hazards that come in your way, and the cool little twist that this game throws in is you also have some deck building as a part of it. So you have a hand of cards that is your cattle that you're taking with you. And sometimes you discard these cattle to get money. Sometimes you discard them for abilities. But at the end on your route from Texas to Kansas City, and you make this route like 5 to 7 times throughout the game. So it's not like, one is around. Like there's a different thing that triggers end of game. So that you might make it to Kansas City 5 times. You might make it there 6 times. You might make it there 7 times. It just depends on how the game is going. But when you get to Kansas City, your goal is to have a straight of cows, basically. Like pairs aren't helpful. So if you have like 2 black Agnes, you can only sell 1 black Agnes. You can't Angus. Why am I saying Agnes like the name? Angus. You can only sell 1 of them. So you want to try to diversify your hand as much. So you're trying to like discard cards and draw cards. So and also like you can pick up objectives and other cattle throughout your adventures that you're putting into your deck and building that hand. So you have not only this Euro aspect of going to locations, taking locations, doing things, building buildings, hiring workers, getting new cattle. You're also doing this deck building aspect of like, okay, I want to diversify my hand as much as I can. So I want to draw cards, I want to discard cards, I want to play cards, so that when I get to the end, so you have this hand management part, you have this Euro game going on, and then when you get to Kansas City, it all culminates in this. Now I have to ship my cows, and there's almost a little game that happens with the shipping, because depending on the value of your cows that you have and how far you've moved your train down the track, depends what city you can ship it to and how much money is going to cost you extra. And like any good Euro, you get at the end of the game, you get points for like 12 different things. So you're trying to keep all of this in mind as you're like going from location to location, and there's hazards you have to avoid, or you have to pay money to get past them. And if you land on, the opposing player's space, sometimes you might have to give them money, and it restricts the actions you can do. So it's a really cool, fun, engaging, thinky game that on the surface, very, very simple. Move there, do the action. That's it. That's all you do. But then after turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, the complexity just ramps up and ramps up and ramps up. I only played this 2-player. It was the wife and I playing. I would love to play it with 3 or 4 to see, because the navigation of the board with 2 people isn't super difficult. I was really, for the most part, easily able to avoid any of the buildings she had built or the locations she had built. So I really didn't feel most of the negative effects that can happen with that. So I think with a few more players, that might increase the complexity there. And in reading too, it seems like 3 seems to be the sweet spot for this game. I would highly recommend it. It is definitely a heavier Euro. So if it's the first Euro you ever play, I wouldn't recommend that. But if you have some Lords of Waterdeep under your belt or something like that and are looking for a solid next step, I can't recommend Great Western Trail enough. It is a good time that gives you a little bit of Euro, a little bit of deck building, and a lot of variety, because locations change every time you play. The buildings you can build change every time. Your objectives change every time. So there's a lot of replay value in the game as well. So that's Great Western Trail.
Nice. Very good. Okay. Want to get right into the topic? Let's do it. So I don't know if you have the same experience as I do, but in general conversation with people, I find that most people are shocked to hear that I play board games.
For sure.
And they don't necessarily understand what a board game is. Everyone has this kind of like bland idea of Monopoly, Chutes and Ladders, Candyland, whatever you can think of, Game of Life, stuff like that. That's pretty much what people think of all the time. So it's interesting when people talk about things like Great Western Trail or Mansions of Madness, games that are crazily named that people would never even assume was a board game. That's why we thought it would be a good idea to cover like how we got into board games. And it's kind of like a gateway drug. Everyone has a friend who wants to give them a little taste of the board gaming life. And
we don't call them gateway games for nothing.
Yeah, and so why don't you start by telling us basically how you get involved?
Yeah, so and I'll keep it short because I know like we're trying to keep it close to 60 minutes, and so I don't want to go too long. But I mean, the short story for me with board games, I think, is like a lot of people actually. It started with Magic the Gathering. I had dabbled a little bit in that when I was young, but never got super into it. But then when I was just out of over time, I'd played like Catan and things like that a little bit. But then when I was just out of college, I found a group of friends who went to Friday Night Magic every week, and they did all of these things. And actually, in the town I lived in at the time had quite the hopping Magic scene. The number of people we had, at pre-release events, we'd have 120 people at pre-releases, and even at the midnight pre-release, and it was quite a happening town for Magic. And that's kind of how I got into board gaming, because the store also was the friendly local game store and had a lot of board games there. So after playing Magic for a number of years and getting into that, sometimes we'd be like, okay, what do we want to do in our downtime? What do we want to do if maybe, the meta for Magic has gotten kind of stale and we don't want to play F&M every Friday? Like because, that's what I had to do with my Friday nights. What else do we want to do? And that's where we would start to jump into, we would pull out Catan, or we play Pandemic, or maybe some Killer Bunnies or Munchkin, because especially with Killer Bunnies and Munchkin, it fit in to a degree with Magic. So that's kind of how I got started. As I was playing Magic, saw these other games that they were there, started playing some games that were similar, but then had a couple friends who first introduced me. Actually, I went from playing Pandemic, Catan, Killer Bunnies, and Munchkin to like the first big serious games I played within like a couple days of each other were Trajan, or Trajan, depending on who you talk to, and Terra Mystica. So I literally went from like the shallow end of the pool to the extreme deep end of the pool in like no time. If you're not familiar, like Trajan and Terra Mystica, pretty heavy games, pretty complex, not super simple games to grok and understand and figure out. Trajan actually has a really cool Mancala mechanic to it. So like how you determine the actions you're going to do is you have this Mancala in front of you, and you have to think ahead enough of like, okay, I know on this turn I want to like pick up this resource, and then this turn I want to like have this person do this thing, or put a governor out here. Like, so I have to plan like multiple moves ahead of how I'm going to drop these, pieces in and with matching the colors and stuff. It's crazy. And Terra Mystica is like Catan on steroids, where you're terraforming these lands because you can only build things if the specific piece you're on, it matches the land that works for your race, and you build these different buildings, and it's just Catan on steroids. It's great, and it's all just been downhill from there. Over the years of playing games, I definitely lean more towards theme over mechanics. I definitely prefer the quote unquote American style of games. I like chucking dice, and I like playing with cards. And my wife I was lucky enough to have a wife who is super into board gaming as well. It's kind of one of the ways that we bonded and got closer and kind of formed our relationship was around board games. So that's part of the reasons it's so important to me. But she's really big into Euros. I just know if I'm playing a Euro, I'm probably going to lose to her. Whereas she knows that if we're playing things with cards and dice, she's probably going to lose to me. So that's good. It's nice. It kind of balances us out. I have a really strong affinity for deck builders, and I think that goes back to just my time in Magic. I can tend to pick them up pretty quickly. Games like Mystic Vale, after game 2 in Mystic Vale, I was building decks where I was running through my entire deck, like each turn. It's just something that comes very naturally to me because of my time there. So yeah, that's my story. Like I said, like most people, started with Magic, played a couple gateway games, jumped in the deep end, had some friends who were still into it, so that helps. And here I am today, trying to decide if I'm going to pay $130 for a board game that I'll get in March. What about you, sir? What's your story?
Well, I started with Magic also, but I didn't associate games, if that or play Magic in high school. What's some to it? I played Magic forever, system and games that came out, TCG. And then I kind of stopped, and I didn't really play board games, with the exception of occasional party games. So after that, years went by, and I started working with a guy who wanted to have game nights. So he invited us over, and we played maybe Catan, which I had never played, and then Ticket to Ride eventually. And then all of a sudden, I was right back in. I was right back hooked into all these board games, and yeah, I'm compulsive with anything I do. So like if it's board games, video games, if I start collecting something, that I don't stop. So that kind of just happened with board games. I just started buying them and playing them. If I could play a new board game every day, I would. I don't think I have the brain capacity to remember the instructions to every game,
No.
but I could. I certainly could. And then what year is it? 5 years ago when my buddies and I went to our first PAX East. We were in the hotel, and my friend Marcel opened up a game called Ascension, which I had never heard of. And we played it in the hotel room that night, and I won the first game. And then the next day at PAX, I bought everything they had of Ascension. And then
depending on what year it was, that was either a couple things or a ton of things.
No, it was just the base game and some promos.
Okay.
But up until last year, my wife and I, we have every Ascension. I haven't caught up with the past 2 or 3 because we're just not playing it as much as we used to. But we used to play it daily. Like, I love deck builders, so I hear you on that.
My board game next week will be a deck builder.
I tend to lean, yeah. I tend to lean towards Euros, but I love Ameritrash just as much. I always lose at Euros, but I enjoy my time playing them. So I'm not one of those guys who plays board games and hates to lose. I just love the experience, the social experience, all that. And while you're debating your big purchase, I'm waiting for my Gloomhaven to show up. I get you for the big purchases, and now it was supposed to be here already, and I'm keep checking my Kickstarter updates, and it seems further and further away the more updates that come out. So I'll get it eventually. But yeah, that's my story. It's not super crazy interesting, but I'm in it. I'm in it to win it.
Absolutely. I think it's
to lose it.
I think if you're interested in board games, like, ask friends. Like, I think they're more than likely you have a friend who plays even if you don't realize it. Like, I just, inadvertently, I moved to Iowa a couple of years ago. I don't have a regular group of people that I play with just because, you kind of offhandedly mention to people here, oh yeah, I play some board games, and they're like, oh, like this and this, and then you're like, immediately like what kind of board games they're into. So if you're looking for a group, it's not hopefully too hard unless you live in a really, smaller rural area. But there's people who are playing the games we're talking about. You just might not know about it.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Well, it's crazy to say it, but that wraps up the first official episode of Board, BOARD, with video games. Thanks for joining us. And remember, find us on social media with @BoardWithVG. That's Twitter and Instagram. Please make sure you're using the hashtag #BoardWithVG. There's already a few out there. We've been getting some friendly love from the PSVG folks. Yeah, we're going to keep saying it. BOARD. So don't hate on us, nerds. We know that it's a pun. So I'm not going to plug too much. Just look for me on Twitter as Josh Bones, and then just follow us and give us some love. Let us know what you're thinking. Give us any notes, any tips. What do you guys think of the first episode? And why don't you tell them where they can find you, Kyle?
So you can find me on Twitter and the PlayStation Network at Cycocross, CYCOCROSS. I think that's technically my BGG account too, but I have never posted. So, I mean, if you are on Board Game Geek, feel free to find Board Game Geek. You can definitely look for me. Maybe I'll start posting more. That might be a good idea to do. Yeah. Also, big thanks and shout outs to Kevin and Shiplig, who both sent us Twitter questions. Their Twitter questions were so good, they're actually probably going to be our next 2 topics for the show. So I just wanted you guys to know we didn't forget about you. We did not hear you, but your topics are so awesome. We want to cover them more in depth. So look for those in the coming weeks. So look, shoot us shoot us a Twitter message, talk to us on Instagram, and hey, maybe what you talk about will become our topics of the weeks. So if you have any, like I said, if you have suggestions for future topics, be sure to reach out to us on social media. And stealing something from Kevin, but modifying it to make it appropriate, remember everyone, whether it be board games or video games, never stop gaming.